A hunter named Grady takes his son, Blake, to the woods for hunting. As they walk, they see a deer. Grady slowly moves closer to aim and quietly calls Blake, but he is missing. Blake briefly steps away from his dad to get a better shot at the deer. When Grady finds him, he angrily scolds him for wandering off, warning him about the dangers of the woods and highlighting their tense relationship. Grady notices a fast-moving creature that appears to be walking on two legs. He and Blake rush to a nearby hunting blind as the unseen creature attacks and killed the deer. But when Grady looks, the creature already retreats. That night, Blake secretly listens as his dad talks to someone on the CB radio about the creature. But when Grady catches him, Blake quickly runs away. 30 years later, Blake is now a husband, father, and unemployed writer living in San Francisco. While walking with his daughter, Ginger, he gets nervous when she climbs onto some construction barricades. He tells her to get down, but she doesn't listen right away. When she finally jumps down, she lands in front of an angry man who starts trouble. Blake calms things down, but then scolds Ginger, making her cry. He apologizes, but ends up giving her the same lecture his father once gave him. The both of them then head to their home. When his wife, Charlotte, comes home, she's on a call with the news agency she works for and hardly notices Blake and Ginger. Blake and Charlotte argue in front of Ginger about her job taking up too much of her time, but it's clear Blake also feels jealous that she's the one supporting the family. He also receives a letter from an attorney informing him that his father has been officially declared dead after being missing for years. Inside the letter, he also finds the key of his father's farm. The next day, Blake visits Charlotte at work and brings her lunch. She's surprised, mentioning how long it's been since they ate together. They have an honest talk about their struggling marriage, and Charlotte admits she feels disconnected from Ginger. Blake suggests they spend the summer at his father's farm in Oregon, packing up the house. He sees it as a chance to take a break and focus on being a family again. The family begins their road trip to Oregon, arriving at night in a moving truck. Blake struggles to find a road to the house in the dark. They spot a man in the old hunting blind where Blake used to go with his father. The man climbs down and introduces himself as Derek, a local who knew Grady and remembers Blake. He offers to guide them to the house, and Blake agrees, but Charlotte insists they can't let someone in who they don't know. Blake reassures her, and they continue their journey. As they drive and talk, the tension between city folk and country folk is clear in their awkward conversation. Suddenly, Blake swerves to avoid what looks like a man standing in the road. The truck rolls over and crashes, coming to a stop on a bluff. Derek opens his door and falls to the bottom. Blake helps Charlotte and Ginger get out safely, but then the creature from the road attacks. It mauls Blake's arm and drags Derek's body away. Blake, Charlotte, and Ginger rush into the house, but the creature slams against the door, forcing Blake to hold it shut. After the creature finally leaves, Charlotte and Ginger hide in the dark living room, while Blake goes to start the generator. Once the lights come on, Ginger, scared by the creature, tells her dad they should go home because they're not safe there. But Blake insists they'll stay the night, and by tomorrow, they'll call for help to return home. After that, Charlotte tends to Blake's wound and sees that the cut on his arm is huge and bloody. Blake then finds his dad's food storage and grabs some jerky. But as he takes a bite, one of his teeth suddenly falls out. As the night goes on, Blake tries the CB radio to call for help, but it's not working. They then decide to sleep and get help from someone by tomorrow. While Charlotte and Ginger try to sleep on the living room couch, Blake hears loud thumping from upstairs. He checks it out, only to find a spider crawling along the wall, but its footsteps sound deafening to him. He also hears the creature moving outside, searching for a way in. It finds a hole in the doggy door and grabs Blake by the leg, but Charlotte manages to fend the creature off by hitting its arm with a hammer. Once the creature leaves, Blake's transformation speeds up, and soon he struggles to understand Charlotte and Ginger when they talk. They also can't understand him when he tries to speak. His vision changes too, turning into a sort of infrared view that lets him see in the dark. He also pees on his pants. Blake then manages to write down one word, dying, when Charlotte panics and doesn't know what to do. She then uncovers the bandages on his arms and sees that the wound is much worse. She realizes that the wound on his arm isn't healing, and this infected arm is making Blake's condition worse. Blake becomes even more feral, lunging at Charlotte and then chewing on his wounded arm. His eyes have darkened to almost black, and more of his teeth have fallen out, replaced by sharp canine ones. Charlotte notices a truck parked outside and manages to get Blake and Ginger out. She successfully restarts the battery, but then the creature attacks, smashing through the windshield and breaking off the gear shift. Charlotte, Ginger, and Blake run to the greenhouse and climb onto the flimsy plastic roof. The creature tears through it, nearly grabbing Ginger, but Blake attacks it. Blake signs them to go to the home while he goes to fight with the creature. Charlotte and Ginger manage to get back to the house, but Ginger starts crying for not taking her dad inside. After some time, Blake comes to the door and Charlotte opens the door. Once Blake inside, we see his transformation speeds up and he's nearly unrecognizable. Most of his hair is fallen out, replaced by patchy fur, and his fingernails have fallen off, replaced by claws. He also vomits up one of the creature's fingers. Ginger tries to comfort him with a mind-reading trick they used to do, but Blake can't understand her anymore and his vision is totally weak. Blake lunges at Ginger and Charlotte, staring at her like a devil, as if he's about to kill her. After a few minutes of intense staring, he moves to another room. The creature bursts in, and a fierce fight breaks out between them. At first, the creature gains the upper hand and beats Blake, but Charlotte stabs it with a knife, drawing its attention and giving Blake a chance to recover. She takes Ginger to another room and locks the door. Just as the creature lunges at Charlotte, Blake appears, and the two fight. In the end, Blake overpowers the creature, pinning it to the ground and killing it by biting and ripping out its throat. As the creature dies, Blake looks it closely and recognizes the tattoo on its arm and realizes it's his father. Blake then runs outside and collapses on the ground. His transformation continues, with his nails peeling off and sharp claws growing in their place. His teeth sharpen, and his muscles harden as his body fully transforms into a complete wolf man. Inside the house, Charlotte notices the tattoo on the creature and recognizes it as Blake's father. She then tells Ginger that it's his grandfather and explains that his grandfather's sickness has passed on to Blake. Ginger starts crying, saying she wants to see her dad the way he used to be. Charlotte comforts her, and they hug just as the lights go out. Suddenly, the wolf man Blake appears outside the window and enters the house. However, he's no longer a normal man and has lost control of himself, attempting to attack Charlotte and Ginger. Charlotte takes Ginger, running to the barn to hide, but Blake can see them in the dark and hears their every breath. Blake gets caught in a bear trap that Charlotte set, giving them a chance to run. As Blake chews off part of his leg to free himself, Charlotte grabs a rifle and gets Ginger up to the same hunting blind where Grady and Blake once used to go. Blake eventually finds them, manages to climb and blind hunt. Even though he's fully transformed, Charlotte tells Ginger that her dad just wants his suffering to end. But she can't bring herself to pull the trigger before he lunges at them. Blake suddenly makes an aggressive move toward them that Charlotte is forced to act and pull the trigger. Charlotte and Ginger climb down and stay with Blake until he dies. As the sun rises, they walk out into the valley, where they see a beautiful view of the mountains, something Blake had always wanted to show them. In this way, movie ends here. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe for more interesting movie recaps.